and as explained in the preamble, these actions are proposed as the 10 overriding key actions that must be undertaken by Pacific Island countries and territories and partners if we are to deliver our conservation commitments by 2020. Once adopted, they will form an integral part of the action strategy for nature conservation in the Pacific region for the next 5 years and beyond. But before I begin presenting the key actions, which I'm not going to go into detail, I'll give you time to read, I would like to take this opportunity to once again express Fiji's firm commitment to furthering the cause of responsible environmental management in the Pacific. As the recently appointed chair of this conference, Fiji will ensure that the emphasis is placed firmly on action. We're not interested in simply making grand pronouncements that are not achievable or are never implemented. In fact, I would like to this morning announce, and with great pleasure, that Fiji is offering to host a more focused, high-level meeting consisting of representatives from government, business and civil society by no later than April of next year to follow up on the key action points that you will see this morning and which you have also brought, which you will see in the plenary sessions that have been produced by this conference. We propose that this gathering be where we will seek firm commitments from individuals, organizations and governments about how they plan to action the outcomes of this conference before they sign the 2014-2020 action strategy. We would like this gathering to reflect the Bainimarama government's belief, which is shared by many of our Pacific Island countries and neighbors, that we need to adopt an inclusive approach to climate change and environmental preservation. This is what His Excellency the President of Fiji meant when he called for a grand coalition. We want all stakeholders to have a seat at the table, including NGOs, the corporate sector, development partners, international organizations, and individual communities throughout the Pacific. Indeed, such an approach served as one of the founding principles of the Pacific Islands Development Forum, the new regional body which is based in Suva and is tasked with finding practical, affordable, and sustainable solutions to sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got up on the screens there on either side of the hall the 10 key points. I'll give you a little bit of time to read them in detail, but of course you have access to these in a written or hard copy format. We didn't want to print it all out for you to save some trees. But if you do want a copy, you can get electronic versions of it, or we can also give you hard copies. But we'll take you very quickly through them. The first one is the ecosystem-based adaptation. There's a lot of debate about this yesterday, and finally these wordings have been agreed to. And essentially we're talking about the EBA in this context and the application of it, and indeed its adoption and implementation. So I'll give you a few minutes to have a read of that. The next one is food security, and food security you'll see is broken down into two categories. The first one is to do with agriculture, and of course the conservation of the biodiversity and its impact on agriculture and its land use. The second provision regarding food security is of course to do with fisheries, which affects many of the Pacific Island countries, in particular the smaller ones, that are very small land mass, but vast sea resources and indeed sea areas that fall within their jurisdiction. The fourth vision or target area is invasive alien species. And many of us, of course, have been subjected to this. Many of our ecosystems and biodiversities have been subjected to this. And this is a specific provision here to address this very real threat. Information for decision making, which is the fifth point. Recognizing the need and to not just collate information and data, but of course to collaborate in the sharing of that data and information, and indeed making it available to the local communities for their information, and in fact to empower them to be able to use that information. That is developing those types of partnerships which we need to do right down to the grassroots level. The sixth point is capacity development, which feeds into, if you like, from the fifth point that was raised. Of course, it's critically important for the effective implementation of our environmental policies and programs to have capacity within our own organizations, our own countries, our own governments. And a very valid point, of course, was made that it is also the decision makers that need to have the capacity within themselves, because ultimately, and in most instances, they make the ultimate decisions that will affect the environmental policies, laws, and the future policy direction of any country and indeed the region. I hope I'm not going too fast. Number 7, as I said, you'll have access to this also in hard copy or soft copy. Rigor, responsibility and enforcement. And there's obviously a need to be able to the point I made earlier on in the introduction, to ensure that these objectives in fact are implemented and there is a real commitment to ensuring that the various areas that need to be addressed, in fact, are addressed, both at the governmental level and even mainstreaming many of these issues. Of course, none of this would be possible, or much of it would not be possible, without a financial commitment at a regional level, at a national level, and indeed at a community level. And so there is a recognition of that. And as I know that some of the countries have already started various trust funds or various levies that are specifically dedicated to conservation, to environmental management, to mitigating processes and systems that have been put in place. So this captures that need to have that financial commitment. Point number 9 is the blue-green economies. I think there's a bit of debate whether it should be green-blue or blue-green, but I think we got it right. Essentially, again, a recognition of the strength of a blue-green economy, the need to be carbon neutral, and to have indeed a healthy environment for sustainability, not just in terms of livelihoods, but also in terms of our health and well-being. Last but not least, private sector engagement in impacting markets. as you see, will address not just the issue of corporations and companies reducing their carbon footprint, but also the need for this region, both at a national and regional level, to encourage the private sector to invest, for example, in renewable energy enterprises. Some countries have done that quite successfully, some are doing that at the moment. Because with that type of investment, we can in fact, for example, if you have a focus on renewable energy, we can reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. There are the 10 key points, ladies and gentlemen, that was agreed to by the high-level summit yesterday afternoon, after lunch. And of course, there was a statement in terms of the leadership role that needs to be taken. I think it's worth our while to put that up, and I'll read that. We commit our roles in government, our institutions, our activities and resources to support, enable and deliver conservation outcomes at a local, national and regional level, recognizing that leadership is key to challenging and changing our economic pathway from one focused on short-term gains to one focused on long-term sustainable development outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, each of these 10 points is important in its own right, but of course without action, it is merely a list of aspirations, nothing more. I ask that you take the next few months to seriously consider these points and how they might fit into your existing efforts before returning to this proposed gathering that we hope to have before the end of April to Fiji, and ready to make some firm commitments.